Hi, I'm Nicole and welcome to Nurturing Compassion. We are on Vlogmas day 16 and today we have a little bit of a different video. I actually went on Instagram Live with my friend Tina, who interviewed me for her new series called The Switch, where she interviews vegans about their story of going from non-vegan to vegan, and some people even from vegan to raw vegan. I was so honored to get to be the first interviewee on this series, and with Tina's permission, I was allowed to upload our live to my channel, so I really hope you enjoy it. If you like my content, I think you really would love Tina. Tina really helps people who are struggling with their health get empowered and take back control of their health and their life through healthy eating and other natural whole food methods that actually helped her get HPV free. So if all that sounds cool to you, I really recommend you follow her on Instagram as well as YouTube. I will link all her information down below so you can check her out. This is her Instagram handle. And anyway, I'm just so excited to be able to share this interview with you. I really hope you enjoy it, and let's dive right into it.
Dun da da da! Hello everyone. We are going live right now and I'm just starting this new series called The Switch. It's all about different people and their stories going vegan and raw vegan, and we're here to introduce you to Nicole. So let's bring her on. Here we go. She's just coming on right now. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, thanks for having me, Tina.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming. I was just doing a short little intro about how this is called The Switch, and it's a new series. And I'm excited to collect stories and collaborate with people like you who have been living a vegan lifestyle. And so today I wanted you to introduce yourself a little bit and just like let people know a little bit about you, or your age, where you're on from, and maybe some tidbits about your passions or things you love spending your time doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Nicole and I live in Maryland in the United States. My family is from Poland though, so I'm the first generation born in America. And I have a degree in environmental studies and economics. Animal rights is really my main passion. And I think that sustainability was really a way for me to kind of be able to help the animals and still get a degree in something I'm interested in. Like, I definitely am passionate about the environment, but it always comes back to animals. Like everything I do, I've always been just completely obsessed with anything having to do with animals. And yeah, I'm 23 years old. That's the other thing. And
Awesome. I didn't know you were first generation American. I am too, so that's pretty cool. But my family's Hungarian.
oh wow, yeah, I
Yeah.
was one. Hungarians are so beautiful. Like, it's such a just a beautiful country.
Aw, thanks.
Have you visited before?
Yeah, we have I've been a few times, so I definitely have relatives there. And hi, if you're watching. That was. Well, this is exciting. So, I really resonate with your activism around the environment and having it stemming from, animal rights, and they go hand in hand. And I just really admire the work you're doing and creating on Instagram right now and spreading the word in the world. So thanks you for doing that. Yeah, it's really
Thank you.
special.
I feel the same way about your work as well. I love the way that you are empowering people to take back control of their health, and you're doing it through like whole plant foods, basically. It's like the stuff we're meant to eat.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. So you've been living this lifestyle for a while, or how long have you been doing this?
So I went actually vegetarian first. I went vegetarian when I was 17 in 2013, and then I went vegan about 4.5 years later in the summer of 2017. But the funny thing is that I actually was asking to become a vegetarian. I didn't know what vegan was since I was 4 years old. Like the moment that I realized that meat was a dead animal, I was like devastated and I did not want to eat it, but I was always told, well, you need to eat it because it's healthy and you need to get your protein. And like my dad was always like, you can be healthy as a vegetarian, but it's very hard. And basically we're not going to be cooking anything separate for you, so you're going to have to deal with it. And
And at 4 years old, you couldn't exactly do that, could you?
right. Right. And like through the years, it would kind of pop up every now and again. It's not like I was asking every day or anything, but it would always come back into the conversation and the answer was always no. And even when I was 17 and I said, I want to do this, the answer was no. And I said, no, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do all the research to make sure I'm doing this the right way. And my dad actually said, well, that's what I've been waiting to hear for all these years.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. So he
Wow.
basically, he was like, when she is able to take responsibility for that, that's when I know that she'll be ready to take this on. So it was a lovely parenting moment, but I was like, oh, wow.
So how old were you in 2017? Was that 20 years old?
Yes. 19,
Okay.
20, 20. I think so.
So you've been doing this lifestyle now for 3 years, but it sounds like it was really calling in your heart and, really resonating with you. And it sounded like you had this kind of moment where you decided, I'm going to be accountable and make my own switch, but take responsibility of the education and information I'm giving myself so I can do it in a healthy way or, like the right way that feels good with you and your family. What was that experience like? Like, tell me about your whole story of leading up to that moment of like deciding to educate yourself. And, I'd love for you to.
Sure. So I guess we should kind of start with, it's frozen on my end. Are you frozen? Am I frozen?
I see you frozen, but mine's still going. So
Okay, I can hear you. It's frozen, so I'll probably unfreeze. Um, can you guys who are here watching, can you let us know if you can still hear us? Okay, you unfroze on my end, but
I think we're good now.
okay, cool. So I guess I'll start with kind of like vegetarianism, which is where it started for me. Um, Basically, I remember I was sitting in a AP English class and we had to do one of these projects that were in class, and basically you would be provided with a question of some kind of topic and you would have to pick, either for or against, and you were given a set of like 5 or 6 different articles, and it was sort of like a speed thing where, okay, you pick a side, you read through the articles, and then you write an argument. And the question was, is animal testing justifiable? And before reading any of the resources, my heart was immediately like, no, it's not. It's horrible. And, I read both sides, and I've learned, that 90% of the tests that we perform on animals fail in human trials. And there is technology available that does not involve animal testing, but we're kind of stuck in these old ways. And reading that and writing about that, I left the classroom with a whole new perspective. It felt like I was really returning to something that I had known since I was a very small child, but I now had facts beyond just like, this doesn't feel right in my heart. And so it really sent me on a mission in a way of looking up, okay, well, if there's all this information about animal testing, what else is maybe bad for animals that also has a lot of facts on its side of not necessarily being the best thing to do anyway.
Yeah.
And I remember looking up, factory farm footage, and it was just heart-wrenching. and
Did you
seeing.
look up on films? Like, did you actually watch documentaries, or was it just like a Google search or a YouTube search, or what exactly was the platform? Do you remember?
It was Google, basically, just like good old Google. And so I looked on PETA and I was reading stuff on there, and I kind of joined their like PETA 2 street team. It's basically just like this, it's a kind of a cool platform where teenagers can go and you have an account and you kind of collect points by doing different little activism like signing petitions or sharing videos to Facebook or writing letters, and you can actually like donate your points to charities or claim prizes. They sent me like a bunch of activism stickers and stuff like that. And I remember I was just like, well, this is what I know, and I'm just going to start with this. And like, I literally saw in the Google search, like, there are so many better organizations. Don't join PETA. And I was like, nah, it's fine. I was like 17 years old. I'm like, nah, I'm gonna do this. Is what I know. And
That's a really big leap, like, because it sounds like to rewind back a little bit, you were researching footage on factory farming, and then you got onto PETA's platform and directly joined activism, or did you need to go through like a process of convincing yourself? Like,
so it's kind of interesting because I remember, and I like feel so guilty about this, but when I when I wrote that paper on like animal testing and being against it, I was kind of like, I walked out of the classroom and was like, wow, I'm an animal rights activist now. Like, I want to learn all that I can. And, but I was like, but I have to eat meat. I have to eat meat because I work out a lot and I like need the protein or something like that.
yeah,
And so then when I was doing all this research and I saw the factory farm footage and I saw all this stuff, I felt sick, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I don't, at that point I was like, I don't care about protein. I don't care about any of this stuff. This is wrong and I can't support it. And like, it was at the point where I would try to look at meat and I like felt sick to my stomach. Like, I
yeah,
could not touch it after that. And again, it was kind of this returning to something that I knew in my heart. And the more I read, the more I saw that it was actually fairly easy to live a healthy lifestyle and eat this way in the most compassionate way possible.
yeah.
And I knew I want to go vegan one day, but right now I need to focus on getting a handle on vegetarianism and cutting out that cruelty first. It was like I knew that all animal products were awful and harmful, and I really looked up to vegans a lot. But it was just like it was already kind of a big leap for me to make, especially in like convincing my parent, like my dad and stuff. I was a little bit nervous about that. And so I just kind of started there. And the only really the only vegan that I knew was, I went to Catholic school
Yeah.
and it's insane, but the only vegan I knew was the disciplinarian at our school, who
Oh
was
wow.
like crazy, would like give people detention for having their shirt untucked. And so I like went in his office and I'm like, hi. And like just told him I was doing this, asked if he had any advice, and he like handed me Diet for a New America, the book. And
Oh, I love that book. That book really convinced me on my path too.
I know. And
Wow, so you were pretty bold. You got courageous and talked to this disciplinarian. I mean, you could have let fears or myths like, oh, vegans are super strict and I don't want to be like that, but you approached this person and they handed you this book to look at.
yeah, he let me keep it. He was like, he had several copies, I think, for like exactly if this were to happen,
Yeah.
which is just so cool. And I don't know, it like it kind of feels all like a distant memory, because it's like weird to think about me eating meat or wondering like, is this going to work for me? But like, I have to find a way to make this work because I know in my heart that it's what I want. And like, here I am all these years later, and everyone knows me as the vegan friend, the vegan person. It's like, not like, people have a hard time fathoming the fact that I ate meat. And
So
so
your first process was like giving up meat and going vegetarian. And
yeah.
so I guess I'm kind of confused how long time lapsed between you going from vegetarian to complete vegan, like that crossover.
Oh, okay. So at that point, it's kind of like a whole other little revelation in and of itself. Be
Okay.
because basically, I knew I wanted to go vegan, but I don't know why I didn't. I was just like, it was a transition for me, I guess. And 3.5 years later, that summer, I went on a 5-week kayaking and camping trip all around the Chesapeake Bay. It was through the environmental studies department, and I was getting credit towards my major. And essentially, on that trip, we spoke to all kinds of people who made their living around the Chesapeake Bay. Everything from like watermen to artists to everything, everything you possibly imagine, environmental lawyers, environmental nonprofit people. And we saw some pretty disturbing things in the way that animals were treated. Just, I
Well, like what
remember,
did you see?
well, one day we went to a snapping turtle processing plant, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
What
People, so
happened there? What?
some people eat snapping turtles, and so it's like this, it was this very little place. It was nothing like a factory farm, but it it was basically, this little house kind of thing, and they had all these turtles, and the professors wanted us to watch one be slaughtered and prepped to see what these men do every single day of their job. And I was just like, I was crying the whole time, and I saw them like slam a turtle into a trash can, like a live snapping turtle, because it's like that's how they would carry them around, is basically these like plastic trash cans.
Yeah.
And I lost it. Like, my heart hurt. I didn't know what to do. And my professor basically came up to me and was like, you get it, you don't eat animals, you can go, and I didn't know what to do because I just felt so helpless. Like, all I wanted to do was to help these animals, and I walked out, and I just laid in the grass and cried for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
um
Gosh, that's like I'm getting chills throughout my whole body just you sharing this story, and I don't know how you handled that because like I've thought about making myself go to a farm just to like make myself see the real experience, to be more vocal about it, or just to, even though I am convinced, and I just don't know how I could handle that. Like you just had to lay on the grass and let your emotions flow. It's like, what do you?
yeah, like I there was nothing I could do. Like, I guess I could have tried to purchase the turtle and release them, but it's like they would just be back out in the water tomorrow catching more of them.
Yeah.
And another thing was, I remember we went to this place called VIMS, which is like Virginia Institute of Marine Science. I think that's what it is. And they took us on this little tour where they took us on a boat, and we were going to like different sort of like habitats that exist on the bay, which was like really cool, like the deeper water and the more shallow water and like the marshes and stuff like that. But the issue was that everywhere we would go, there were nets and buckets, and we were told to be like collecting all these animals, like different fish and slugs and crabs and all this, and we were keeping them in little buckets. And the issue was that, first of all, I was like, why are we taking these animals from their habitats and then driving them on a boat miles away from their home? They're never going to get home again. And the other thing was that we were keeping all these animals that needed different habitats and different temperatures in one bucket, and they were just suffocating and dying and eating each other.
Oh,
And
wow.
this scientist, this biologist who supposedly, cares about animals, he's just like telling us to bring in these nets that are we're trying to capture different fish, and there's all these fish that are dying and flopping and suffocating because, oh, those aren't desirable ones, we want to bring back this one. And none of the animals were officially killed by him to eat or anything, but then we like brought them back, and we're supposed to be looking at them under microscopes, and it just felt sick because there was literally no reason as to why we were doing what we were doing. It was literally as if we were like kids on a playground, just playing with these living creatures. And it made me so upset. And like my friend Emily and I were like throwing stuff, like throwing the animals out the buckets and like trying to rescue as many fish as we can. And at one point, I found these two big blue crabs, and I basically, I was like, oh my gosh, look at these two gigantic crabs. And I showed, my partner and my friend, and then, before I knew it, everyone's like gathering around, and then I see the biologist coming, and I'm like, no, please, no, please. And like, I literally was like, don't put them in the bucket, leave them alone. And he's like, I just want to look at them. And I was like, I found them, and I want them to stay here. I don't want them to be taken. And he was just like acting so annoyed with me, but it was just, it was
That
it
was
was
the
that.
lead scientist you were saying it to, and
Yeah, he was a biologist, some kind of scientist, but I think that, it was a lot of stuff like that on that trip,
yeah,
where it's cool to see what people do, but there's a lot of exploitation of animals, just not really caring about the individual life, more of like what's best for the overall environment, the overall population, not individuals. And so I would pretty much use any opportunity I could. This was still school related, so we would be giving presentations and stuff. Every single opportunity I had, I would be talking about the animals. I would be asking people to look at how doing this made you feel, or like, why do you think this is okay? And I was just it felt like I was really reigniting a very deep fire and passion. And it was when I got back from that trip that I really started looking more seriously than ever into veganism. And I just kind of transitioned seamlessly. Like it was kind of like all of a sudden there was a switch and there was no going back. So it was very heavily connected to that trip. And I think also on that trip, there was some awful stuff that I saw, but it was also incredibly healing and beautiful, waking up in nature every day, spending just 4 solid weeks. The fifth week was just like doing final projects and stuff. 4 solid weeks in nature, just completely immersed in it. And I feel like when I got back, I was aligned to my true self more than I had ever been before. I was happier than I had ever been in my adult life. I felt like a child again.
yeah.
And
It's like you're living your truth and you finally realize it, and there's this like lightness and freedom and integrity of being that follows it.
yes, like I got rid of 80% of my possessions. I went vegan. I started running all the time, and it was like it just became so clear who I am, what my purpose is, and that's what nature can do.
Yeah.
And I think that that's also part of my veganism, is seeing what nature can do and what animals do, how they've always made me happy and done nothing but bring me joy. And it's like, well, I want to give that back to them. I want to show them compassion and get people to stop harming them just because it's convenient or they want to.
Or the conditioned way of being, yeah, like the norm.
Right.
That's a really powerful story. I can't believe you spent 4 weeks around this. I have so many questions, but
I'm sorry that was really long.
no, I'm like wondering, was that teacher vegetarian that brought you to that facility? Like all these questions are popping up. But what I'm really like curious about is like you spent these 4 weeks and it was like all these seeds were planted and they were really like getting stronger and stronger inside of you. And what did you have like a decision point? Do you remember, like, so you said you got home and then you just saw clarity. Do you remember the point where you actually made the decision, or is that kind of like just in the past now, or do you remember
Well,
that point?
I think I do a little bit. I remember like I was kind of researching veganism, and my friend just happened to bring up like, oh, I've been eating dairy free. Like she eats whatever, but she had mentioned, I've been dairy free and I've been feeling so good. Like I'm just so surprised how, stopping dairy has really impacted my energy levels and whatnot. And I was like, interesting. So I kind of tried it for just a week, and at that point I was still having eggs like every morning for breakfast, and I was like, wow, I do feel better. I am feeling more energy. And I like Googled, like, what does it mean if you're like a vegetarian who doesn't eat cheese, but you eat eggs? And like, I'm not kidding. Like, the only thing that popped up on Google is like this article that's like, well, I mean, there's not really a name for it. Or it's like, I guess you'd be called an ovo vegetarian, but
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
really no reason why you would just cut out dairy and meat and not eggs when like chicks in the egg industry and hens in the industry are exploited just as much, if not more, as in the dairy industry. And I was like,
Good
wow, yeah,
point.
you're right. Like, what am I doing? Why am I trying to like scoot around this, you know? And I think that is the answer that came up for a reason. I think that's what I needed to hear. And it just like was like, yeah, like I feel so good. I'm gonna go all in.
Okay.
I don't know why it was such a resistance of like fully going in completely into veganism, but then like once I did and I claimed that title, it felt so right. I
Mm,
was like, why didn't I do this sooner? This is fantastic.
that's awesome. So yeah, it almost sounds like you were having these experiential events happen, and all these seeds planted through education and the book and people, and then like finally seeing this example of a friend, ditching the dairy and feeling better, and then you had this like gradual process that was just like flowing more and more and more towards vegan, and once you claimed it, you felt like really liberated by it and empowered.
Yeah, for sure. It felt like home. Felt like what I was meant to do from the beginning.
But so going back to when you were originally talking about it, you said, oh, but I'm worried I won't get enough protein. But it's like you took this leap of faith when you first let go of the meat. Um, how did you get over that myth, or did you hold any other myths that really held you back besides like just the moralistic aspect of it? Did you, like, for instance, I used to think that and I'm sorry that I thought this, but I thought that vegans were, weak and like anemic looking for some reason. Like this was just my idea at the time, but and then like once I actually had to, and I also thought that I had to have protein to make muscle, and I was an athlete at the time, so like I was afraid to do it, even though I felt like interested in doing it. Did you have any kind of things like that, or did you just take the leap of faith, and then as time went on you learned that it was healthy and okay? Because some people are afraid to sacrifice their health for their moral thing.
Right, right. That's a really good question. And I'm trying to think back as to like when I first even went vegetarian. And like, I really feel like my only question was, what about protein? Because like, that's what I was conditioned to hear. Like, I didn't really know much about nutrition, which is weird because I grew up obese and I lost 40 pounds. And that was kind of the other thing was like, oh, I was just worried about my weight basically. And like, I worked out a lot and I was like, oh, protein, right? Like that's a thing you're supposed to have a lot of when you work out.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know that I had in middle school like a friend who was a vegetarian, and I remember always thinking she was so cool. I was like, wow, I wish I could be a vegetarian and like all this stuff. So I don't necessarily think so. And like it definitely wasn't an issue of like thinking animals are like put here for us or anything either. I think that honestly, like my biggest roadblock at the beginning was just like I'm realizing more and more how much I really want to like please my dad and make him proud. That's like something that is like very important to me. Not even that he's like pushed on me. It's just something that is inside of me. I care a lot about what he thinks. And so when my dad said no, it was like, well, then I guess there's no possible way for me to do it, which is interesting. So like that was really the main roadblock. And even when I first went vegan, it was like I was in the closet vegan for like
Yeah.
3 months. Like I was not ready to tell my parents and like I was tracking everything in chronometer, making sure everything, I was like hitting all the targets so I could show him, because it was a thing of like, oh yeah, my daughter's vegetarian, but like at least she's not vegan.
Yeah.
So that was definitely like something that made me a little nervous. But I remember when I like came out on the phone to him about being vegan, I was like, I like, you know, was going on and on, like listing all these facts and like, and I had been trucking in Chronometer and I can send it to you and show you. And he was like, no, it's okay. It sounds like you have it under control and you're feeling good. So that's the most important thing. He's like just so supportive. And I
So it
saw you
sounds like that was, yeah, it sounds like that was one of your biggest challenges actually, was like overcoming this like I guess idea that you need to prove it to your loved ones, you know?
right.
Yeah.
I saw someone in the chat ask, do I sleep better as a vegan? And it's interesting because I've never really had issues with sleep. I've always
Yeah.
been pretty good at just like falling asleep at night. So like I haven't noticed like a huge difference, but overall, I mean, I sleep very well. So I don't know if that helps. Just like being honest, I
Well,
don't know, but I think so.
yeah, going along with that question, like what are some of the benefits and you know, gems that you received from switching to vegan? Like how has it benefited your life?
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh,
You
so
can
many
even
ways.
talk about like the short-term benefits and then now, because it's been 3 years, right? So like you could, you know, mention even the longer term ones too.
Oh yeah. Well, to begin with, I was really focusing on like whole raw foods primarily, and I really felt fantastic. Like, especially like the first like 3 months of being vegan, I honestly felt high on life all the time. I was kind of continuing to ride that wave of how good I felt on the kayak trip, but then I think the food was really fueling it to continue, and I that's like my favorite part of my life so far, of my adult life, is like how amazing I felt when I first went vegan. And
Well, what did
I,
you feel? Like physically you felt like what?
I just felt happy. I felt connected. Like
Mm,
I felt like I could be moved to tears by like something like a beautiful flower or like a
wow.
sunset because I felt so connected to nature and the world around me. It's like it's very difficult to put into words, but it was like this profound realization of connection to everything else and feeling like I was truly for the first time in a long time aligning with my values and who I was. And I think in some ways that just manifested in my physical world of how I felt. But also it was like I had more energy. Like I think part of it was like I was happier because I felt more energy to do the things that I wanted to do. I mean, after the kayak trip, I was working a regular 40-hour a week job. And on top of that, I would like wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go for a 6 to 8 mile run and journal and make like a super healthy smoothie. And then I would go to work. And then a lot of times I would still have energy to go for like a 60 to 90 minute hot yoga class. Like it was outrageous. I had never experienced that kind of energy before. So that was something that is like very, like that's something that's very meaningful to me, is having the energy to do what I want to do,
Yeah.
because there's so much that I want to accomplish. And sometimes feeling energy is like the main roadblocker. Um, and because of that increase in energy and eating the whole foods, I was losing excess weight that I had gained just from the overwhelm of college and studying so much. And I was, you know, that just made me feel even happier. And it was like this self-fulfilling cycle of just feeling better and better and better.
It's
Um,
definitely holistic, right? Like the emotions feed our energy, and at the same time, physically, our body and cells are getting nourished in a better way. So then that gives us more energy, and it's like this kind of upward spiral of well-being that everything is like mutually helping each other go up and up and up. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Now, the thing is that, again, it's that spiral. And so once I went back to school, and I'm like, I was such a perfectionist in school, like to the point of a fault where I was obsessed with my grades. I was obsessed with, you know, being the best and learning the best, like, and honestly, it does tie back to the animals because I was like, I need to learn all this information to help the environment, to help the animals. And when I got hooked into that cycle of overworking myself, the spiral started going in the opposite direction of like just eating whatever was around, you know, whatever I could get my hands on. That was vegan, of course, but not so much of those like whole healthy foods that were fueling me so much. And, you know, I would work out, but then it's like, oh, I would sleep in a little late, so maybe I'll go a little bit shorter today, and you know, a little bit less and a little bit less, and it just unraveled in a way. And I found myself feeling so lost and just striving to get back to where I was before. And you know, when I first went vegan, I was like, veganism is the best, like you cannot be unhealthy as a vegan. And I kind of realized that like there's good food and there's, you know, there's unhealthy food, just like in the standard American diet, because we have all these options around now of like cookies and crackers, and like everything has a vegan version. If there's something you love, I guarantee you there's a vegan version of it. And so
That happened to me too, as well. Like going on the diet, I think I naturally gravitated towards whole foods in the beginning because I had to make a lot of my own foods. And where I was living, they didn't have this convenience, vegan, refined products or anything like that. So, you know, coming back to trying cooked vegan again in the US, like there's definitely a lot more products and convenience, and especially now that it's becoming more like I think that it's a growing movement, but it's easy for it to also affect our health in a negative way. Like it's not like the vegan is just the law. I mean, it can be a hard line, but also the health aspect comes in, whether it's someone's, I think, coming into the journey from a moral standpoint of view, like then the health stance gets realized, and awareness is brought there once we start like I guess exploring different the gradation or spectrum of vegan foods.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that also when you're there primarily for the moral aspects, you're more likely to stay on the lifestyle, but you also are more likely to kind of fall into that junk food vegan phase. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's okay. Like I'm because again, it's like if I were just in it for the health benefits, if like I had gotten to the state where I was, I probably would have gotten to the point where it's like it's too inconvenient, you know, I'm just gonna eat whatever. But no, it was always about the morals. So
Yeah.
it's got to be vegan, and you know, I'll figure this out later. And after graduation, like it kind of took me a while, but I feel like I'm finally like back onto feeling as good as I did before, because I've been like just eating so many whole foods and exercising regularly and taking care of my mental health, and like it feels good to be like on that up and up spiral again.
Yeah.
And I think that it does have to do with eating a whole food plant-based diet.
Totally. And lower in, from my own experience, lower in fat too. Like, I
Right.
mean, overall calories. Um, so it sounds like you had like this learning curve around it too, even while living in it. And do you feel like now looking back, I mean, from now till like when you were first starting, do you feel like you've learned like what have you learned about yourself like doing this whole process? I know it's a big question, but I'm so curious about it. Like what have you learned about yourself doing this?
Do you mean like veganism in general, or like getting back to feeling like I'm like what
More like being on the
exactly?
vegan path,
Hmm.
you know, like for instance, I think that one of the like me looking back on my life, I can see that choosing the vegan path has taught me, and it always will teach me things, but one of the main things it taught me is to take my education into my own hands and to empower myself, and um, also to not believe everything that I've been taught, to
Right.
question mainstream stories. And I was just curious, like if there's something that stuck out to you on your own personal journey where you feel like you've awakened to this new side of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the main things I've learned as I have progressed on my vegan journey is really to show compassion. And of course, it comes back to compassion for the animals, but it's also about having compassion for people,
Yeah.
because on this path, we are very often ridiculed. We are not the majority in society. We are the unusual people, and people don't understand it. But not only that, when a lot of people like to say that they love animals, but they eat them, and it triggers, like, I think, insecurity and pain sometimes when you, even just existing as a vegan, you kind of push that button in them where maybe they know that that doesn't necessarily align with their values, but they're doing it. And sometimes that gets projected on us as vegans in the form of side comments or even nasty comments sometimes. And so I think that I've really learned to, at first I was a very angry vegan in some ways. Like I was always ready to just like argue, and I was like, no, this is the best thing that you can possibly do for your health, and like you're not going to convince me otherwise, and like you're wrong, but I've really been able to like take a step back and accept the fact that people are at different stages of their understanding, and you never know how you might be planting a seed for them to come to this realization later, even if it's not right now. Even if you have a conversation about animal rights with someone and at the end of it they're like, I see where you're coming from, but I disagree. You don't know how a couple years down the road that may flourish into something beautiful and powerful, that you may be the catalyst that actually got them to go vegan in the long run. And just like, you and I weren't born vegan, and I didn't go vegan right away. I think it's really about meeting people where they're at and showing compassion and showing patience. And I don't know. I think that, I guess what I'm trying to get at is really like, even if a conversation doesn't go as good as you think it did, don't just assume that, it went horribly and like, oh, something's wrong with this person because they don't agree. It's just like patience and
Yeah.
acceptance. And I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I actually completely agree about that process because it's part our will to take choices and action, but I also believe there's something higher up outside of us that meets us halfway, that helps our consciousness expand. Like I can't choose if I'm going to have an epiphany, that comes in kind of like divine timing, like when life is ready for me to be there and I'm ready to be there, and we both put in our step towards each other. And that's out of my control. I can't, if I controlled that, I just be like, okay, I want to do this and I want to do this. But it's like, I do feel like it's kind of a spiritual consciousness shift or process. And it's partly like educating ourselves and in the players that come into our life, the people that plant seeds and examples. And then it's also something outside of ourselves that meets us and is like, okay, you're ready to have this shift happen. And that's just, I think it's, so I can't judge somebody for whether they are doing it or not, or understand it or not, but I can, like you said, show compassion. And I think that's a really important element, because I don't think shaming people helps someone change their consciousness. Like I don't think it's effective personally. And I completely agree with that.
I really like what you said about how, you can't pick when you have an epiphany, and it's kind of like, it's that moment where you, in your reality here, and like your higher consciousness or universe, God, whatever you want to call it, meet, and it's like it's the perfect moment. It all happens at the exact time that it's supposed to.
Yeah. Because like you could have been like, oh, I had that book, why didn't it just happen then? Or why didn't
Right.
it just happen when this person said something? Or but it was like this process for you. And even if it was like this shift that was like automatic in one moment, even that's kind of like uh a divine timing, or like you said, like
Yeah.
source or something higher up, like, okay, it's your time. Like you're gonna get unplugged.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So going along those lines, do you have any kind of like advice for anyone who may be watching this and hasn't uh, taken the leap towards, choosing a vegan lifestyle? Do you have any advice that has helped you?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say that the most important thing is to get clear on your why. Why is it that you are intrigued by this lifestyle? Because, I'd like to think that if somebody is here and they're this far along in this live, they're at least a little bit curious about veganism. And so I think it's important to really take a step back and think about what is it that's drawing me into this? Is it the fact that I really care about the environment? Is it the fact that I love animals so much? Is it that I have this ideal version of how I want my body to function, and I just have this guidance showing me that veganism is the vehicle to get there? Look at what inspires you, what makes you feel fueled with that passion and that drive, and how that relates back to veganism, and sit with it. And then research it extensively and learn how to do this the proper way. Learn the facts about, and like whatever is your why, you're going to need to look into the other two as well. If you're really passionate about animals, spend time learning about the animals, but it's also important to know about the environment and the health as well. So I think really just feeling that why to your core, and accepting that like this is a path that's been calling to you, and then going from there and kind of being open to whatever comes through for you in terms of like what resonates with you, what doesn't resonate with you, because there's like 100 different ways to live a vegan lifestyle. You can be a vegan and eat junk food all the time, or like you can be like a super healthy health food vegan, and like it's all valid. But it's important to get clear on kind of what you, sorry, my dog just came busting in through the door. It surprised me so much. But yeah, I feel like I'm kind of rambling, but that's my main form of advice that's really helped me a lot.
So like picking the passion or the thing your why you're calling it, or like if I'm super into the environment, or I'm really into health, like how does that relate back to veganism? And really research it and get into it, and like you said, sit with it and see what resonates, what bubbles up, like what you really feels right inside, and choosing
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
because ultimately, this is an unpopular lifestyle at the moment. Like that's just the fact of the matter. Like
Yeah.
the majority of the population is not vegan. And so you are going to be you're going to have to deal with comments. Like it just is what it is. You're going to have to deal with uncomfortable comments. Sometimes you're going to be inconvenienced at restaurants, maybe if they don't have something you want. And so in those moments where it gets hard, or, at the beginning, even if you're tempted by some kind of meat or cheese, like you're going to need to come back to that why at those moments, and know to your core why you're doing this and what brought you here in the first place. And I think that that's really the key to staying on this lifestyle for the long term.
Yeah. Are there any kind of shout outs or people you want to name and give gratitude for that have really supported you on your vegan path? Like you mentioned Diet for a New America, or like any actual people in your life that have been key figures and really supporting you?
Yeah. Like first of all, Gary Yourofsky, the greatest speech ever. It like resonated with like everything I felt in my heart but couldn't put words to. My father, who, even though, he started out kind of resistant and whatnot, he approaches my lifestyle with such non-judgment and such love, and he always wants to veganize everything, and he goes out of his way to like make dishes that we always used to make for holidays, but like he'll replace the butter, he'll replace the eggs and make them vegan for me. And it's just like, it's little things like that that really mean so much to me. Also my partner, who was just so supportive. He's always just so supportive and amazing. And again, just like cooks with me, is willing to talk through, like even if he doesn't exactly have all the same views on animals and animal rights that I do, but he's always willing to listen, and he's always willing to learn. And I think he sometimes pushes me in the right ways of like playing devil's advocate and helping me understand my beliefs better. So I love him. He's my world. Also, my dog Charlie. I want to thank my dog Charlie.
Aw, that's sweet.
He's my best friend, and he gets me through everything. And I think that, you know, he's just every day a reminder of why I do what I do and my deep connection to animals.
I love that. Let's supercharge them, their gratitude their way, and
I know.
supercharge Nicole with sharing your amazing story. I really love this. You know, it's really amazing to hear like the whole journey, and like I'm, you know, gleaning all these little things from you, and I'm really grateful that you came on here. And I was wondering if you wanted to share with anyone like where they could, if you're on a public platform, or ways they can connect with you, and yeah, go ahead and share that with people.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, so I am here on Instagram. I'm at nurturing_compassion, and I'm posting every day. I'm always active on my stories and stuff. I'm also on YouTube, and that's just nurturing compassion, plain two space, or like, you know, spaced out two words. Um, I have a TikTok that is also just at nurturing compassion. And I have my website, nurturingcompassion.net, where you can actually reserve my free ebook that's coming out. It is really focused on everything I learned that summer I went vegan, and just the power of connecting to nature, decluttering your possessions, and then decluttering your space of toxins, whether that's your physical space or whether it's what's going in your body or your mental toxins. So if you like my vibe, you like what I've been talking about, would love for you all to reserve that. That's in my link in my Instagram bio.
That's awesome. I do you have any kind of like projects coming up that you want to share to people, or
Yes. So I'm actually in the process of developing a 30-day challenge that is all about detoxing your mind, body, and space. So rather than previous, you know, minimalist challenges where it's all about the stuff, I really wanted to expand upon that and have it more of that holistic approach, because then we can do, like we said, where we are spiraling on the up and up, and you can keep building on that. And I really want to help people build that solid foundation so that they can go and run with it. And the other thing is that since I have a background in environmental studies, I also want to teach people how to declutter in a sustainable way and acquire things in a sustainable way moving forward, because I also think that that has helped me with just like my happiness levels and taking responsibility for the things I had, and allowing, when I let go of that energy and I know that I'm doing everything I can for it to be reused or disposed of properly, I really think that that energy then comes back to me in just beautiful ways, whether it's new opportunities, exactly what I need at the exact right moment, relationships and people. And it's just this really powerful thing that I've stumbled upon. And so if that sounds interesting, I would love for you all to join me along that journey. It's going to be launching the 2nd of January, 2021.
wow, you've got the launch date and everything. That's exciting.
Thank you.
Well, I wish
I'm
you
really,
so much success with that. So
thank you.
everyone, be sure to connect with her on her platforms. And yeah, I'm just really grateful that you took the time to meet up with me and share like your heart song. And I really, really wish you a lot of success with everything you're doing, because I really believe in it. And, you know, I really care about the environment too. So it's really good to see someone being so active about it. Yeah, and sharing such good tips. Um, yeah,
I love
and
doing this. It's fun.
aw. So we're going to actually be joining you tomorrow again, and we're going to hear about some raw food experiences that you have been journeying with. And so if everyone wants to come join us tomorrow at noon, and yeah, you can stay tuned for that interview and subscribe. And if you really like this series, you can hear more stories. So they'll be coming every week. And thanks everyone for joining us. I see all your beautiful faces and comments on the
I think
comments
we have
below.
a question. I think we have
Oh,
a question
do?
in the chat if we can. Yeah. So
Yeah.
World says, have you experienced being ridiculed when eating out at restaurants, etc., family members or friends? How did you handle slash navigate it with compassion?
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, I don't know about you, Tina, but like I definitely have. Usually it's like coming from a place where like they sound like they're joking, but like they're still saying something rude. Like it's actually funny because my dad's been so supportive and like literally as of it like stopped like maybe a year ago. I'm not kidding. Every single meal is like, or when we're at a restaurant, it's like, oh, so you're getting that with bacon, right? Like that was always his joke. And like I think in that case it wasn't coming from a negative place, but like it's just something that like it gets old. And again, like it's like how do you navigate it with compassion? I think it's just taking it one case at a time, and in some cases just holding your tongue and trying to kind of like take a couple breaths before you respond so that you don't respond in anger,
Mm-hmm.
or at least you can be more aware of how you're responding rather than just like snap being rude back or whatever. It also is a matter if like alcohol is involved. Like I know that I've like drank wine before I get on the topic of animal rights, and like I piss people off. And I think that I've gotten better at that just from, I don't know, just from experience of like seeing what things make people angry, seeing how people take certain things well. It's really just a matter of practicing, honestly. Like it's something that's difficult to teach. It's just something that, you know, your style and your approach, you'll kind of come into it and find what works best for you. Do
Yeah.
you have anything
I
to add, Tina?
Yeah, I do. I think that intention is really key. So if someone is saying a demeaning comment or even looking at me in a demeaning way, I, I can have the intention of creating argument or conflict or separation, or I can have the intention of serving love and peace in what actually serves the moment. So if I remember that and I tap into it, then I can intuit what to do in the moment. And sometimes that's, it actually is not engaging in the conflict. Sometimes it's actually saying something. I think that vulnerability is a really big key to empowering oneself and communicating. And instead of focusing on the other person and what they're feeling, focusing on my own feelings, like saying, using the NVC method of like, wow, what you just said, when I heard you say what you just said, I felt really hurt. I felt really sad, and you know, why. You could say why, and then you can ask for what you really want, which is like, I really need connection or inclusion right now, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to use your words in a way that love me instead of separate me from the group, or whatever the scenario is. And it takes a lot of like awareness and slowing down and catching it, and like you said, it's a practice. I don't think that I've often used that. I think a lot of the time I've had jokes, geared towards me, and I've tended to avoid conflict in the past, and now I'm more engaging in like when it actually serves in the moment to say something and when it doesn't, versus like always being quiet or always shutting down or isolating myself. But for the most part, I feel very convinced in my lifestyle, so I can recognize that the other person is maybe just saying that out of fear, or because it's something new, it's something that challenges their reality and their ideology, and so, and they're allowed to have their own, they have free will and they can choose that. Maybe I don't agree with it. I can disagree with them in the moment and share what I see if it serves the moment, and at the same time I can hold back. And just one thing I wanted to add is like, if someone's like doing that at the dinner table and they'll be like, why do you do this anyway, or like make some kind of comment like that, I tend to not actually talk about veganism as a topic during meals, because and I said this maybe in like another thing that I shared, but it's like, that's the moment it's the most heightened, and you know, at the time, I'm like, if I actually share what I know with them, either they're gonna just like reject it because they're eating it, you know, they want to enjoy the meal, or they're gonna just totally lose their appetite, you know. And it's like I don't want to create that kind of tension during a meal, but if they're really interested in talking about something, even if they're antagonistic or something, I can offer to talk about it after the meal.
That's really awesome. I'm sure it's a little bit more obvious in your case since it is also raw. So it's like probably evokes even more questions than
Oh, yeah,
other stuff.
if I'm eating a raw, yeah, for sure that can, you know, but it's funny. I think like a lot of the time most people are quiet around me. Like I don't find so much antagonism. I think sometimes I more feel it. Like I can feel their inner process. They
Right.
don't outwardly say it to me, but I've never been the type of person to be in their face about, well, why do you do that anyway? You know, like, but you know, everyone's different. And I've kind of always come from the like, I'm just going to be the example, and if someone's interested, I'll explain it. But this is kind of like me stepping into my activism now, in the sense of like I want to share these stories. I want to affirm what I want to, you know, what I love and want to see in the world, which is what you're sharing, which is compassion, you know, awareness, and empathy for other beings besides humans, like all of life. And when we align with that love and align with honoring life, like we feel it, like you said, the energy, the love, the wanting to share the love. And it's a way of honoring ourselves, honoring others. And I really pray that like all these stories can reach our hearts and open our minds and hearts to something that aligns with the harmony of life, like in nature and all beings.
I
So
100% agree.
I'm so grateful you came, and I think our time is up, but I will be talking to you tomorrow.
Our
And everybody like and subscribe Nicole's YouTube and her Instagram. And if you feel like it, comment below and let us know what you think. And if you have more questions for future vegan interviews, let us know. And saying goodbye to everyone with lots of love. Thank you.
bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for staying and watching that interview. I really would love to hear what you think about it. Let me know in the comments down below your vegan story, because I think Tina and I both can relate in the sense that we love hearing other people's stories and how they stumbled upon this lifestyle. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.